Our next speaker is Minister Timmy Dooley, TD. Minister Dooley is attending today on behalf of Minister O'Brien, who sends his apologies as he could not attend due to the North-South Ministerial Council meeting. So we wish the Minister the best of luck with that meeting, and hopefully he will be able to join us in October for our biomethane event. We are delighted that Minister Dooley represents the government today. Minister Dooley is the Minister of State of both the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine, and also the Department of Climate, Energy and the Environment. Both departments are very important for our sector, and we have regular engagements with officials in both. At TT, for the Clare constituency, served as constituents in both Dáil and Shannon at various times over the last 20 odd years, since 2002. So, Minister, I invite you to address us this morning, and we do acknowledge you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here, and we do acknowledge also that you're under time pressure, so thank you for being here.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much to Sean and to Morris and to the team at IrBEA. Thank you for the opportunity to come and spend a little time with you this morning. You've already passed on the good wishes of Minister O'Brien and the fact that he's tied up in the north. Unfortunately, he can't be here, but he sends his good wishes, and of course I'll be reporting back the concerns that have been raised, and I'll be certainly reporting back to whoever the next Minister for Forestry might be, Morris, in relation to the ongoing afforestation programme that you talk about. I think it's an opportune time for us just to talk about energy generally when you look at what's happening geopolitically. For far too long we have become dependent on fossil fuels, a fuel resource that's hugely damaging to the environment, but in addition to that, a fuel source that we really have no control or power over. We have limited gas supplies within our jurisdiction, but other than that, we have been the ultimate importer and so much dependent on what happens around the world. We do need to, and we have been looking at other sources, of which, of course, bioenergy, and indeed that from the forestry sector, can be and should be and will be an important part of our fuel mix and our energy mix for the decades ahead, together with what we're doing in relation to wind and solar. And I think it's often maybe lost on some that of course, from a bioenergy perspective, we can also identify suitable sources of energy that can be complementary and meet the needs of certain sectors of the industry that may not be provided for through electrification. And I think it's important that your sector is given the support and the recognition that it rightly deserves in that regard. And that's what's happening across Europe. And I think we shouldn't be shy from a domestic perspective about continuing that encouragement around all that you do here at IrBEA. So solid biomass is the largest source of renewable energy in the EU and remains a vital part of the energy mix across member states. And of course, Ireland is no different, with solid biomass accounting for almost 2/3 of all the bioenergy and 1/5 of the total renewable energy in the state, comprising of biomass and waste energy. So the unified goal of both industry and government is to build on these significant achievements. Ireland has a long history of utilising and neutralising the use of biomass, from the use of wood and peat in the previous centuries to the implementation of the significant state-funded afforestation programme of the 1990s in order to increase supply. And I do take the point that Morris has made that we may not have continued as we had started out in that regard. And I suppose evolving gradually then to the construction of Ireland's first industrial wood waste CHP plant at the sawmills in County Cork back in 2004. And of course we look forward to what you talk about, Morris, in that project in Killashee, and I've had some discussions along the way with some of the principals in relation to that, and I think it would mark a very significant development. It would send a very strong signal to the sector generally that of course solid biomass can be a very significant part of the energy mix as we proceed. I suppose from that sawmill back in Cork in 2004, it marked a notable shift towards efficient wood processing residues and how they can be used to replace fossil fuels in a number of key areas, such as industry and, of course, in agriculture. Successive governments have recognised the role biomass can play in those areas and indeed in others, and have set policy accordingly with the view to developing the sector further. But I'm conscious that setting policy alone is not always enough. It does require significant action to bring it to fruition further down the road. The Government's 2007 White Paper on Energy Policy identified wood-based biomass as a key contributor to achieving renewable energy targets, particularly in the heat sector. The paper highlighted biomass as a crucial component for improving sustainability, security of supply, and indeed competitiveness in the energy market. And with this in mind, the state has provided support for the sector for a number of years through the various schemes and indeed tax incentives. The Refit 3 scheme, launched in 2012, was designed to incentivise the addition of new biomass capacity to help meet Ireland's renewable targets then. And indeed, a number of other government schemes, such as the Renewable Electricity Support Scheme, are also open to biomass-based solutions. The introduction of a solid fuel carbon tax relief on biomass in 2016 provided that additional assistance to the development of the sector, as did allowing the eligibility for certain biomass technologies in the Accelerated Capital Allowance Scheme. And then in 2019, the support scheme for renewable heat was launched by then Minister Richard Bruton, with the aim of encouraging commercial, industrial, agriculture and public sector buildings to move away from fossil fuels for heating purposes in favour of the more renewable alternatives such as solid biomass. And I know in my own county, the headquarters of Clare County Council moved at that time, as did Dromoland Castle, and a number of, at least two, I think, in the county, of care facilities. And I think there has been a good story from that. Through the scheme's operational supports, almost 5.2 million in tariff payments has been dispersed to biomass-based projects around the country to date, with an additional 33 million at least committed to cover the next 15 years. Department officials are examining other measures to improve on the supports offered under the scheme, recently approving the implementation of a new SSRH funding scheme to assist with project management cost for biomass grantees. Officials are also working to implement a number of additional changes to the scheme, including an adjustment in how the heat cap for individual operational aid projects is calculated, and that will accommodate growth of the business in receipt of SSRH supports. There are also changes planned to the inspections approach for biomass projects that will streamline the process between application stage and entering the payment cycle, and simplify the reporting burden on tariff beneficiaries. In addition to this, I'm informed that the state aid uncertainties that have restricted the scheme's operational aid support since 2024 are expected to be resolved in the coming weeks. And this will allow tariff supports to be offered to biomass projects over the 1 megawatt, or 6 megawatts, of course, for the SMEs cap, and allow us to revisit the expansion of operational supports to larger projects within the EU emissions trading system sector. Department officials are also in the process of reviewing the SSRH tariff levels to determine their appropriateness for the sector in the current climate. So in addition to the SSRH, Government is committed to the development of our indigenous renewable sectors. And through the introduction of the renewable heat obligation, which is scheduled for publication during the summer legislative programme, and the development of Ireland's bioenergy sector, we can diversify our energy mix, which will have multiple cross-sectoral benefits for Ireland's economy, energy security, and of course, our emissions profile. This will in turn strengthen our energy security and further support the achievement of Ireland's national, EU and climate energy targets. And I think if we were having this conversation last year, it would be all about our emissions targets. But I'm very conscious that people have now felt the real threat of energy security, which is something we've talked about for a long time. But I think the whole energy security debate is going to have a far greater drive towards the journey away from fossil fuels than it might just have had on environmental grounds alone. So the development of the industry will require a coherent and a collaborative approach to the policy implementation across all sectors, including energy, agriculture and enterprise. And the role of solid biomass in emerging markets is also evident from the Department's role in the development of vibrant district heating sector, through ongoing work on establishing funding supports for district heating a number of projects already identified plan on using solid biomass as their primary heat source. And I think that's a very welcome development and a clear indication that, well, first of all, that there's a steady supply, which is the most important in that regard, and the impacts and benefits in terms of cost and environmental impact that it would have. Elsewhere, the Department and the SEAI are working hard to navigate supports through the challenges brought with the introduction of RED 3. This is particularly relevant to the solid biomass sector, with key changes necessary in the areas of forestry management, sourcing rules, cascade utilisation enforcement. And this is required, of course, to ensure Ireland's biomass sector remains healthy, but really importantly, sustainable as well. So in conclusion, Government remains committed to the production and adoption of solid biomass and will work with industry on ensuring its maximum potential can be realised and its sustainability guaranteed. So I'd like to thank you once more for the chance to open the conference and to look forward to working together to develop the sector even further. And I'm sure that today's event, as always, will be productive, informative and interesting. And just to recognise the work of IrBEA and of course to the new team and to the continued work that you do in supporting your members, but also in supporting your members with engagement in a proactive way as you do with government on an ongoing basis. From a government perspective, we really appreciate, Sean, what you and Ken do. That work's really important. It keeps us well briefed, and you know how to use your sharp elbows on occasion when you need to remind us when we're not living up to your expectations. So thanks again for that ongoing engagement. Thanks very much.
So thanks very much, Minister, for attending this morning and for your words of inspiration for the sector. That's very welcome, and we look forward to working with you and your colleagues in government and also in the department, relevant departments, as we move forward.